Hello, my grots and gits, and welcome back to Happy Crumpin' Wargaming. Today, we are starting episode 1 of our 6-episode series, where I'm going to be breaking down each individual detachment for you from the new Ork Codex. Remember, this codex is awesome. Now, some of the detachments are not quite as strong as others, but they are all usable and they're all good, and it's a brilliant freaking codex, and we're going to get some really exciting things done. If you want to get a really good overview of how the whole army operates overall, what you should do is go back and look at my very recent tactical tier list that I did. I know Felix came on for that, and we went through every single data sheet in the codex, and we actually did a really in-depth review of how every single unit really plays and how it should be used. So that'll be a really useful place for you to start. But today we're going to learn how to play the Kult of Speed. Now, this is one I am freaking excited for. Let's do it. That cult. All right, guys. How does the Kult of Speed actually work? So all orcs have certain things in common, right? So they're going to have high OC. They're going to have high amounts of bodies. They're going to have lots of trash. And they're going to have smaller amounts of quality units. The cult has a few unique abilities. The first one is they be going faster. Now, every single unit in the army that has the Speed Freaks keyword, and that's a really important thing that you're going to have to recognize when you're playing Kult of Speed, it needs the Speed Freaks keyword. They get to advance and fall back and still shoot with all of their weapons, and that is actually quite powerful. One of the things it really does is it really encourages an action economy. So this action economy is pretty sick because it means you can always just fall back, say with Warbikers, they can do an action. So it does get you, it really does encourage you to be scoring well on your secondaries, which I find to be highly, highly valuable in the game. Now, yes, Kult of Speed is probably the lowest powered of all of the detachments in the Ork Codex, but it has ample opportunity for fun. So let's go into some more details. Now, what is going to actually have the Speed Freaks keyword? Like, what does this detachment actually benefit? And there will be one or two bonus units that I'll talk about here that aren't Speed Freaks, but still actually like the detachment. So the first, the only character that gets the Speed Freaks keyword is going to be your Death Kill Wartrike, and he likes it. And remember, he goes fast because this guy auto advances 6 inches. So in Speed Freaks, if he's leading a unit, they get to move 12. It's probably going to be Warbikers because it's the only option. So they can move 12. They auto advance 6, so they go 18, and then they can still shoot. That's actually really, really cool. And if it's the wall, they can also still charge. So it does actually have a lot of really good options with him. Your Warbikers obviously have the Speed Freaks keyword. Your Death Copters, Rocket Truck Squig Buggies, Shock Jump Dragster, your Mega Dragster, all your buggies, and then all of the planes. Those are the things that have the Speed Freaks keywords. Now, there is one kind of exception here. So the truck does not have the Speed Freaks keyword, but it will actually get access to one of the strats, as we'll talk about in just a moment. So let's start off by going through all of the enhancements, what they do, and what they might actually be interesting on. So, enhancements. All right, so these are the enhancements that we have. We've got the Waz Blasta. This is actually a pretty darn cool enhancement. It gives you access to Scoot and Shoot. Scoot and Shoot is the colloquial term for you get to shoot your guns and then you get to scoot your butt. So it's really cool. So effectively, if you're not within engagement range, after you shoot your guns, your unit can then make a 6-inch normal move. This is really quite cool, and it allows for a bunch of really interesting play. One thing that allows for is it will allow for Warbikers to theoretically move if they were being led by a Death Killer Wartrike who had the Waz Blasta enhancement, which that's the only model that you can put it on anyway. Well, they get to move 18 inches because they auto advance 6, and then they shoot, and then they get to move another 6 inches. So they can go 24 inches. Now, they couldn't charge after doing that move, but that is a 24-inch move in one turn, which is pretty darn exciting. Another very interesting option would be if they are, say, engaged in melee. Well, I get to fall back 12 inches. Since I'm in Speed Freaks, I then get to shoot Daka, 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 and then I get to move an extra 6 inches. So you get an effective 18-inch move fallback, which can be very handy in some specific situations. So I actually like that enhancement. I think it does open up a little bit of play, and I like it. It's good. Now, then we have Faster Than Use. This is what we all know and we all loved back in 9th edition. This is what gave us the Truck Boys. This is a really interesting thing. One of the big misses in this codex for me was that they didn't bring back specialist mobs. It was such a cool, flavorful thing for orcs that was really, really powerful and just really awesome. But it wasn't broken by any means. But Faster Than Use is kind of like a nod tip of the hat to us to give us the opportunity to do this again. So you put this on a character, and then suddenly it effectively will give the truck that they're in, or really just the transport they're in, it'll effectively give them the assault ramp ability. And for those of you who don't know what assault ramp is, that means that after the vehicle gets to make a normal move, you can disembark and then still charge, because typically you cannot charge if you get out after the vehicle moves. You would have to get out before the vehicle moves. But with this enhancement, after the transport moves, then you get out, and then you make a normal charge. So this would work if you were, say, in a battle wagon, for example. The battle wagon would move 10 inches, you would disembark 3 inches, so effectively getting a 13-inch move, and then you would still make your charge. Same thing if you're disembarking from a truck, just a little bit better, because the truck would get to move 12 inches, you would get a disembark of 3 inches, so you get an effective 15-inch move and then a charge. Now, this could be really, really cool on, say, a unit of boys, because then that unit of boys gets to go significantly faster than you were expecting, and they can still charge and get on steal an objective. It could also be really cool on, say, a unit of knobs, because a unit of knobs can then do that and then kill whatever they're going for. There's another unit that we'll talk about in a little while that is not a Speed Freaks unit that might even enjoy this enhancement even freaking more. Then we have the Squig Head Tires. This is, I think this is a swing and a miss. I don't really see too much purpose in this enhancement, to be honest with you, because you can only put it on a Depth Killer, and his unit will get a 6-inch consolidate, not a 3-inch consolidate. I kind of think this sucks, because Warbikers really aren't going to be killing anything meaningful in melee outside of just like trash. So I think it's just kind of a wasted enhancement, to be honest with you. Maybe if you have a couple points left over, you would take it, but I kind of doubt it, to be honest with you. And then we have Speed Makes Right. Now, this one is kind of interesting, but it's pretty dang expensive, if I'm not mistaken. Speed Makes Right is 25 points. Now, Faster Than Used is 35 points, but that is actually, I think, really worth it. This being 25, I think, is a little too much. But essentially what it does is, in your command phase, if you are within 9 inches of an enemy, then you gain CP on a 3-up. The issue, and it is cool because they did write into the rules that you're allowed to be embarked on a transport when that happens, which is actually a neat little flavorful thing. The problem is that's not really easy to plan, and it's kind of not under your control. Your opponent's going to have to put themselves 9 inches within you, and then it's still on a 3-up to gain a CP. I kind of don't like it. Maybe if I had 10 points left over, I could grab it, but I don't really think I would. Oh yeah, because it's 25 points. Yeah, if it was 10 points over, I would take it. But 25 though, just now. All right, so there's the enhancements. Now let's talk about some of the strats. These are juicy, and they're actually really exciting. So Speediest Freaks is the first one, and I freaking adore this strat. What it does is you get to target a Speed Freaks unit. I actually wrote that wrong. A Speed Freaks unit, not a vehicle unit. A Speed Freaks unit, and they get a 5-up invuln. Now, if they are a vehicle unit and they're under T8, then they get a 4-up invuln. This is exceptionally strong. You can use it in the shooting and the fight phase, and it is a huge boost to your durability. Effectively, if you want to use it on Warbikers, right, they would get a 5-up invuln on demand, which I don't know, maybe you would use it. I struggle to think of when I would use that, to be honest with you. But if you are a vehicle Speed Freaks or a truck, it does specify truck, then you can get a 4-up invuln on demand. That is very nice. That's actually very, very nice. And it's exceptionally nice on one of my favorite units in the Speed Freaks army, the Death Coptas. Now, because Death Coptas are unique in Speed Freaks, because when they're taken in a unit, they're taken in a unit. They're not a buggy or a plane that's taken by itself. The Speed Freaks unit gets a 4-up invuln. That's on 6 models. That is a lot of value. So I do like this strat. It's very powerful, and it does quite good work. Then we have Squig Flingin'. When a Speed Freaks or a truck unit, and I like how they include the truck here. So the truck doesn't really, it's not a Speed Freaks, but it does get to benefit from some of these strats, which I do enjoy quite a bit. So Squig Flingin', yeah. When you add a normal, advance, or a fallback move, you get to force battle shocks at -1 on the enemy unit. Now, this is probably a little bit niche. I'm not so sure we'll be spamming this. However, I do think that this can be quite interesting. Let's say, for example, that there is an enemy unit that desperately wants to overwatch you, and you are terrified of getting overwatch. I would use this strat because I would end my move, and since it's my turn, and I get attacker's priority, I get to declare which my stratagem or their Overwatch stratagem gets declared first. So if I force them by using Squig Flingin' to take that battle shock test, and they fail it, suddenly they can't Overwatch anymore. So that is actually, I can see how it is useful it can also be very, very useful for maybe stealing an objective. Let's say your opponent gives you a tempting target and you can only get one model on it and they have like 40 OC. Well, you end your movement, force a battle shock, they fail it, boom, suddenly you have tempting target. You can stop like combat interrupts if you're worried about it. Lots, it has some utility. I think it's a good stratagem. Then we're going to have the Daka Storm. Speed Freaks units gain sustained hits 1 or sustained hits 2 if you're within 9 inches of a target. This is obvious. It is a big, big damage boost, and we love it. Blitzifier. This is only used on Speed Freaks units. You can gain the lethal hits on all your ranged weapons, critical hits on 5s if the target is within 9 inches. Unfortunately, they decided to say that you cannot stack that with Daka Storm. I really would have been running this on Warbikers, I think. If I could, I would love this. It wouldn't be too overpowered because this detachment isn't super strong. It's okay, but it's not super strong. But you know what? It is what it is. So it's going to be useful. I probably won't be using Blitzifier very often, to be honest with you. Maybe on a Daka Jet, and we'll talk about that combination a little bit later in this video. But typically not so much. Anyway, then we go into full throttle, charge phase. After ending a charge, Speed Freaks unit gain +1 to wound. This is also not the greatest because it's not really a army that you want to be in melee with that much. Now, I do kind of like this on my, Def Coptas. Kind of enjoy this as well. And then your Warbikers can enjoy this too, because that +1 to wound can really make quite a difference into a lot of into a lot of enemy units. So I'm kind of okay with it. I don't hate it. Then the last one's going to be more gets over ear. This is going to be used in your opponent's movement phase. It is a reactive movement up to 6 inches when an enemy ends a move within 9 inches. It's only on Speed Freaks units, and it is quite good. All reactive movements are good, so the fact that we have access to reactive movement is really good. It is more restrictive than other reactive movements because that's how Games Workshop writes Orks rules a lot of times, but it is still quite useful. Now, there is a controversy that's already popped up. I'm just going to make you aware of it right now, and I'm going to give my spiel on it. I do not believe you can use this to make a plane fly off of a board edge or to make a plane move 6 inches, because the rule for aircraft is that they have to move a minimum of 20 inches. This stratagem says you can make a normal move up to 6 inches, which would be less than the minimal move of the planes or the aircraft. People will argue this. I do think that when we read the core rules, it is a little bit unclear which would take precedence here. I know Codex is always or very regularly override the core rules, but this is one I actually don't think does. Now, I'm not here to make a hard ruling or tell you that your TO is absolutely wrong. In my tournaments, it's absolutely wrong. You cannot do it, even though I would love to be able to do it. In WTC, the answer is absolutely no. That is going to be on bullet point number 13, page 8. So WTC has made a ruling on it. GW has not made a ruling on it, and I doubt they will. So that will be a question for your TO if you could use that to operate on planes. If you can, that'd be quite strong. Anyway, let's move on. Now we're going to be breaking down the characters that we're actually going to be taking in this detachment. So the Defkilla. You're taking a Defkilla Wartrike, and I'm always taking them with 6 Warbikers. And I'm always going to be taking Wazblasta, because Wazblasta is pretty dang good. When you get to fall back, shoot, and then scoot, it is really, really nice. I think it's a great enhancement, and I'm gonna be running it. So that's the Defkilla. He's always gonna be running with 6 Warbikers. I mean, yeah, I can consider situations where maybe you would run him with 3, but I'm pretty much always gonna be taking him with 6. Then we might take a Warboss. If we take a Warboss, he will be leading a unit of knobs, right? If we don't take a Warboss led by a unit of knobs, we could take a Warboss leading a unit of boys. If we don't take a Warboss leading a unit of boys, we would take a Warboss in Mega Armor. Both of these characters are actually super, super solid choices in Speed Freaks simply because of the enhancement Faster Than Use. When you have access to this enhancement, you get to get out of a truck after the truck does a normal move. Normal move, not enhancement, or not advancement. Please remember that. It's after a normal transports move. And it's not just trucks, it's battle wagons as well. I'm going to use a truck. You get out after the truck has moved, and then you still get to charge. Now, Mega Knobs in particular have a 5-inch move, which means if you're trying to move them up the board to get into charges, that could be really darn hard. If they are inside a truck, the truck then moves 12, you get a 3-inch disembark, you get to move effectively 15 inches. That is 3 times the normal speed of Meganobs. This is extremely powerful for getting Meganobs to where they want to be. And I highly recommend, if you're going to be taking Cult of Speed, to try that combination out. It is glorious to have your Meganobs zooming up the battlefield. And then lastly, there is a possibility where you might take a mech. There's a few combinations in the book. For example, a mech with a Daka jet can really enhance some damage output. It's cute. I kind of don't think we will take them, but there's a possibility of it. So just to be aware of, the mech is actually kind of useful in the Speed Freaks army. Let's talk about the Warbikers. This is a unit that has a big, profound place in this Cult of Speed army. So they've got lots of utility. They have the reactive move. They get when they use more gets over ear, the reactive move stratagem. They get amazing at move blocking. They've got these big, fat bases. They have fall back and shoot, just like all Speed Freaks units do. But these guys are particularly very good at doing actions because they're so fast. They can get anywhere they want them to be. They're not that expensive. They're surprisingly tough, being a T6 and 3 wounds and 4 wounds on the knob with a 4-up armor save. So they actually are really, really good at doing all your actions. So sadly, they only get access to the 5-up invuln on demand, not the 4-up invuln on demand, which using the stratagem, which is called Speediest Freaks. The problem with that is, I don't know, GW just decided that we can't have fun things. So if they were able to access that 4-up invuln, I think that would be really, really strong and really, really cool. I do not think it would be busted, but alas, it's not. So I probably won't ever use that on Warbikers. I'm sure I could think of a scenario where I would. Now, when led, they actually still have quite a bit of bite in melee because the Deathkiller Wartrike is going to be giving them +1 to hit in melee. Then you can stack that with the +1 to wound strat for making these guys pretty dang gnarly because suddenly they'll be hitting on 2s and wounding on 2s against almost all infantry in the game. Then when you go up to the wall where they get the extra strength, it goes even more to almost all the infantry in the game. There's a few that they might not wound on 2s, but that's very powerful. And they actually do, they have the ability to punch up. Now, when you stack Daka Storm, which is the stratagem that gives us sustained hits or sustained hits 2 if you're within 9 inches, they can actually start killing some units. So let's look at sustained hits 2 using Daka Storm, and we're within 9 inches of a unit of boys. They actually kill 10 boys. And that's assuming the boys are on the Green Tide where they get the 5-up invuln. That's actually not bad. Now, it is pretty generous to assume that the whole squad is going to be within 9, or that is going to be within 9 inches for the AP, so that they're not getting a cover bonus. But you don't have to have the whole squad within 9 to activate Daka Storm. You just have to be within 9 to activate Daka Storm. While targeting a unit within 9. So the whole squad doesn't have to be. It's just one model to be able to use Daka Storm to proc that sustained hits too. If you choose the lethals, they kill less. I think it was just 7. I had the math pulled up just a moment ago. All right, so that's Warbikers. They're really useful. They're going to be great for move blocking. They're going to be extremely fast when you attach them to the Deathkiller Wartrike. They've got all the utility in the world with reactive moves, with shoot and skew. It is a very interesting unit in this detachment, and I'm going to be running probably 3 squads of them. Then I've got the Deathcopters. If you guys have watched my content, you know I love Deathcopters. I am a Deathcopter maxi. I was running Deathcopters in the index. I was running 2 units of 3, and I absolutely adored them. I love them. One of the funniest things in existence is when your opponent puts some Custodes on an objective and says, "Avast, have at ye, matey," and you say, "Cool, Deathcopters, pew!" And the Custode player slightly rolls below average and loses 100 points with the Custodes. And they're like, "Wait, what just happened?" And you're like, "Yeah." That's not even with you high rolling. That's just with them slightly low rolling. But they should lose one. It was very, very exciting. Anyway, Deathcopters, let's talk about them. Since you have all 6 of them, all in one unit, they will get benefits from these enhancements to the max. Speediest Freaks gets the whole unit of 4-up invuln. This is used in shooting and in melee. This makes them quite tanky against a lot of things. Now, I'm not claiming they are tanky, but it does make them a lot tankier than your opponent is probably prepared for. They have their special ability, which when they make a normal move, they can cause a mortal wound for every model in the unit. So on average, when you have 6 of them, if they move over an enemy unit, and remember, you can just move over and move back and end up in the same place. That's still a movement. And you can roll 6 dice. Every 4-up is a mortal wound. So on average, 3 mortal wounds. If a enemy unit is moving in to charge them and they end within 9 inches of them for the reactive move, and if they're within like 6 inches, then you could actually move over them using the stratagem to once again proc your mortals, which is really exciting. Now, you cannot do this when you advance. So if you're taking advantage of the advance and shoot option for Speed Freaks, since they have that option, you actually cannot use their mortal wound bomb, which is pretty dumb. I think it's a design oversight. It is what it is. Anyway, they do have access to grenades, which means these guys actually put out a deceptive amount of mortal wounds. With grenades, they're going to cause 3 mortals on average. With their movement, they're going to cause 3 mortals on average. They actually can tank shock. I wouldn't recommend it, but they can do a tank shock for an extra 2 to 3 mortals on average. They actually have a deceptive amount of output, so just be aware of that. Then they have access to advance and shoot, which is one of the big limiting factors for Deathcopters right now, is they only have a 24-inch range. And so sometimes, even with a 14 or 12-inch movement, I forget how far their movement is at this juncture, but it can be really hard to really get in range to maximize your shooting. But now that you can advance and shoot, it really does help you maximize it a lot. Now, I'm pretty much always going to be running 1 squad of these in reserves and probably at least 1 on the tabletop. I'd say normally I'm probably going to have 2 on the table. And when you're taking Cult of Speed, by the way, guys, just understand you are giving up 20 on Bring It Down. Just accept it. Don't think about it ever again. It's happening. All right, anyway. This squad is always going to be my preferred target for the Daka Storm. Because if I have 6 D3 blasts, sustained hits, 2 Twin Link, Strength 9, AP2, D3 damage rockets, damage 3 rockets, not D3, damage 3, you're going to kill 5.5 Meganobs or so. That's awesome. That's really, really good value. So effectively, you're going to be killing, with a 200-point unit, you're going to be killing 150 points in 1 activation. That's really, really dang solid, especially for some of these tougher, like elite infantry. Since you have the twin linked, it's actually, you can trade up against vehicles if you get a little bit of a spiky roll. When you're getting, when you're going against -1 to wound infantry, it's much more useful because you get the twin links still. It's actually a pretty solid shooting platform. Now, it's not going to be one of the busted, silly, broken shooting platforms that you see in some other armies, but it is going to be 100% the best that the Orks have access to. So if you have only sustained hits 1, so you're not within the 9-inch range, then you'll kill 4 Meganobs. If you're only doing lethals and not sustained, you're only killing 3. So you always want to do the Daka Storm on them. They can get up to 9 damage on a monolith in an average activation. They do terrible into wraiths with a 1.5. But into boys, they kill almost a full squad. They kill 14.5, 15 boys in a full squad of Green Tide. And that's simply because of the math on Blast, because a squad of 6 of these shooting a 20-man blob, woo, that's going to be 6d3 plus 24 shots. It's spicy. Anyway, I love Deathcopters. I do have an entire dedicated video on how to use them. I actually, a lot of times, if I'm taking a 3-man unit, I use them very similar to how a lot of people run Storm Boys. I'll use them for deep striking behind enemy lines, but then they are a unit that your opponent really doesn't want to ignore. But if they want to deal with it, they have to put a lot more into them than just bolter fire, which can be very, very frustrating. Now that I'm running 6-man blobs in Kult of Speed, we'll see how things develop, but these guys are spicy. Anyway, let's move on to buggies. Sadly, I don't have a beer in my hand. Otherwise, I would pour one out for my homies. I have some water. That's about it. Anyway, buggies, they're pretty bad. I hate it. I hate saying that, but it doesn't really matter what the points cost of buggies are. GW designed really bad buggies, and they're not really that useful. There are a few uses that we'll talk about right here. Megatrack Scrapjet. He's 80 points, and he does almost nothing for the cost. His shooting is bad. It hits on 5s. It's random. His melee is bad, hits on 4s, strength 8, AP 1, damage 2. It's not good. His ability, his ability is alright. This is maybe not fair. His ability is not necessarily unreliable. Maybe it's just not the best. Ability is not the best. So his ability is, on a 2-up after he charges, he'll cause D3 mortal wounds. On I think it's a 5-up or 4-up, then he'll cause flat 3. The second part is irrelevant, so I'm not really going to waste too much time trying to find that while I'm talking right now. There is a niche use. Perhaps you would want to stack this dude. You would want to tank shock with him and proc his ability. Because if you did that, maybe then you're causing a fairly significant amount of mortal wounds. And that could be a fascinating plan. Yeah, so on a 2 through 5, D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, he suffers 3 flat mortal wounds. Stacking that with a tank shock, on average, if you're going into infantry, you're getting to roll 10 dice on that. So 3 plus... You're gonna get 6-7 mortal wounds. It's not bad. It's not bad. But the Megatrack overall gets a big fail for me. He sucks. Boondecker Snadswagon. Now this guy's got a fairly interesting ability. His ability is all the enemy units that are going to be within 6 inches of him are suffering a -1 to hit penalty. This sounds good, and then you really consider what does it actually mean? Well, it means that you have to advance your buggy 6 inches in front of your opponent's entire army, and a buggy is like a T7 4-up armor save model. It's not like going to be hard for them to kill it. So they'll just use one unit that's not within 6 inches of it to kill it, and then the rest of their army is able to shoot at your army without any negatives to be hit. Now, the fact that they have access to a 4-up invuln can make them a little bit tankier, which can annoy your opponents a little bit, but they're not great. But there's a possibility where we actually run them. The shock jump dragster, he's awful, guys. I know Felix and I have shown the math on this guy. He's just not good. Everyone thinks that he can teleport and then snipe out a enemy character. It won't work. His gun it does not hit hard enough. Okay, it hits on a 3. You can get it hitting on a 2 if you really want to go with a mech, but that's just not good enough. It's 1 attack, strength 8, AP 2, D6 plus 1 damage. That is not enough to make him that valuable. Honestly, I think you're going to take him more for the teleporting shenanigans to do actions than you are teleporting him and shooting. I just think that's the way it is. Now remember, he cannot teleport and shoot in any other detachment. He can only do that here in the Kult of Speed, because that's the only time he has access to advance and shoot. It doesn't work in any other detachment, no matter how much you want it to. GW even very specifically clarified in the Codex rewrite that it doesn't work. So that is the Shock Jump Jaxa. Custom Booster Blaster, this is one I'm actually interested in. So I do believe I'm probably going to be running 1 or 2 of these in most of my Cult of Speed list. This guy, whenever he hits a target, then that target will become staggered, I believe it is, or suppressed, which means that they are going to be -1 to hit you. So unlike with the Boomdecker Snazwagon, you can actually specifically target out a unit that you want to be -1 to hit, and you can give them -1 to hit. And that is pretty solid. Now, unfortunately, you do actually have to hit with your gun. Now, you do have a fairly high amount of shots, so the likelihood of you hitting is very high, but it still works shooting. I mean, you can miss with it. But anyway, I do think the Custom Booster Blaster has a place. And then we get onto the Rucker Truck Squig Buggy, which people love. And honestly, this guy, the Rucker Truck Squig Buggy, is solely responsible for why all buggies suck now. Because in 9th edition, it was the most busted, broken thing GW had ever concocted. And because of that, now all buggies suck in 10th. And so I hate the Rucker Truck Squig Buggy now because it means my buggies suck. Despicable. Anyway, this guy sucks. He's not good. He's 100 points. He got nerfed when the Codex was rewritten, and even though he had never been taken in a single list ever, he does get plus. He lost his +1 hit against infantry, so that's gone. And now his new ability is kind of like okay-ish. If he does hit a non-vehicle or monster, he can give them a movement nerf, which is just -2 to move, advance, and charge. But it's on a roll of a 4-up, so it's not good. If it was a automatic, then I would really strongly consider running one of these. But on a 4-up, that just means 50% of the time he is going to be a waste of your points. I would not take him. Anyway, those are the buggies. Now let's go to the planes. Planes, slightly better, but not much better news, my friends. Bad news. Orc planes do not have the option to start and hover. They do not have the hover ability. That blows. If they did have the hover ability, they would be a lot better, but they don't. However, in the Codex, the Humble Decajet actually might have a place, since it naturally has sustained hits 1, and it has a special ability, which means all hits that it makes are going to be automatic critical hits, which is kind of cool. So if you stack this with a mech's buff, what's going to inevitably occur is you're going to get a lot of sustained hits. So if you get him hitting on 4s, and then you spend a CP for Blitzifier to be giving him lethals in addition, suddenly you're getting both sustained and lethals on 4s to hit, which is pretty dang good. So this guy's going to have 12 hitting on 5, strength 6, AP 1, damage 1 shots. If you're within rapid fire range, it's going to be 18 shots. And if you're with a mech buff, you'll be hitting on 4s. So if you're going against Green Tide, you're going to kill 10.5 or 7 without the mech. Now, that's when you have lethals. So if you're taking the lethals, you get 10.5. Not bad. You can kill some MSU units with that. That's totally reasonable. You're not going to do much against like powered armies, but against like non-power armored armies, that's reasonable. And then you can get actually 14.5 dead boys with sustained hits too. 9 if you're not taking the mech. This is interesting. For 135 points, the problem is you're going to really need to stack the mech with it, which is that actually is an issue, because you're only ever going to get that buff off once, probably on the unit the turn when you arrive from reserves. And that's just an issue. So I don't like it, but it does actually have some niche play. Anyway, let's look at the other planes. Burnabama. Perhaps there's some play using the Burnabama because he can remove cover, which will really maximize damage from, say, your Defcopters, which you get to shoot after that. Kind of interesting. 125 points. Then we have the Blitzabama. Sadly, this dude only gets to roll 1 4-up on 1 unit to cause D6 mortals for 115 points. That also sucks. I'd much rather just spend a CP on grenades. Then we have the Wazbomb Blastojet. This dude was also very good in 9th edition, and if you're seeing a theme, yes, he sucks in 10th edition. He is very expensive at 170 points. He does hit on 4s, which is great for an orc. You can also get him on 3s if you do the mech trick, but once again, you're only ever going to be able to pull that off once. He does always have a 4-up invuln, which is cool, because it means that he is actually a little bit tanky. He's not like tanky, but he's a little bit tanky. Now, if you are going to be running him, you're always going to want to run the Twin Mega Cannon and never the Teleport Blasta. The Teleport Blasta is only AP 1, and that just sucks. So effectively, this is what the damage profile of this guy is. Let's say you're hitting on a Ballistic Skill of 4. You get D3 shots, it is Blast. Strength 12, AP 2, D6 damage. You're going to kill 1 Mega Knob with that. And then with his Smasher Gun, you get an extra D3 shots, hitting on 4, strength 9, AP 3, damage 4. You're going to kill another Mega Knob. And if you're hitting on 3s, you go up to a 1.5 and 1.2 Mega Knobs, respectively. Guys, it's just not good. It is a bad waste of points. Now, we had a lot of good news. We had some bad news. Now, let's talk about list building. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate the list that I'm starting with in Kult of Speed. I'm sure I'll make some changes as we go along, but this is where my brain is initially. And so this is going to be a great kicking off point for you so that everyone can really get into Kult of Speed and hit the ground running. So this is my army list. It is a svelte 1990 points. I'm going to be taking 1 Beast Boss. I know. What? Beast Boss? Anyway, I'm going to be taking a Beast Boss, and he's going to be running with Snagaboys. The reason for this is because this army struggles into hard targets. It really struggles into vehicles, and I need a bomb that can just go and get a hard target. So if there's a tank that's sitting somewhere, I need the access to be able to just go nuke them with the dev and the anti-monster vehicle 4-up. And since they have innate rerolls, there's a really good possibility that I'm just going to spike very high and I can do good damage with them. So I am actually taking that Beast Boss and the Beast Snagaboys. This is a combination you're going to see in pretty much every single detachment because it's always good. Then we're going to run the Death Killer Wartrike with the Waz Blasta. He will be accompanied by 6 Warbikers just so we can pull off all the stratagems that we talked about earlier. They can advance, auto advance and get 18 inches of movement. They still get to shoot in the wall. They then get to charge. If they fall back, they get to shoot and then they get to scoot again. It is a lot of utility and a lot of power, so I like that Death Killer Wartrike. I am taking him, and he is going to have the Waz Blasta. Then, as we spoke about earlier, the War Boss in Mega Armor with the Faster Than Use enhancement. That's going to give me access to have him and his group of Mega Knobs starting inside a truck. The truck gets to move 12. They disembark for an effective 15-inch movement, because remember, when you disembark, you just got to be wholly within 3 inches of the truck. And then my boys get to effectively move 15 inches instead of 5 inches. This is going to get my Mega Knobs where I need them for some much needed survivability. I can charge them in outside of the wall, and then I can declare the wall where then they'll get access to their 4 Fiona Pains and stuff, and they can just be very, very tanky. It's going to make the list work. I'm going to have a naked unit of 10 boys. These are going to be for sticking objectives, for OC, and just general shenanigans. 2 units of Gretchen. I need CP, so they're going to be generating CP for me, and they're going to be OC bodies, stuff like that. I already talked about the Mega Knobs. 1 unit of 6 Warbikers, 2 more units of 3 Warbikers. These guys are useful for doing the actions, for harassing small MSU units, so we do like them. Then I will take the 1 Daka Jet. Now, this might go away. I'm really unconvinced on the Daka Jet, but I'm going to play with them for a little bit because I do kind of like the idea of just dropping them in, being able to harass like jackals or something like that, and then moving around just being a general menace. That might be a terrible idea, and if it is, then, I'll change it. But for right now, I'm going to leave them in while I experiment. Then I'm going to be running 3 units of 6 Defcopters. This is the core of the army. Defcopters are what's going to be doing all the damage. They're going to be running around. They're going to be tough as heck to kill because they're all going to have 4 invulns at any point in time that matters. So I like the Defcopters. I think I'm going to be using them to quite a good effect. Like I said, 1 unit will basically always be in reserves. Sometimes 2 will be in reserves. And I'll just start 1 on the board. I might start 2 on the board. It depends. Anyway, I'm going to have 1 custom booster blaster for that sweet, sweet suppressed effect so that I can kind of minimize the effect of the worst of the enemies shooting. And then I'll have 3 trucks, and these trucks will be delivering the boys, the beast snags, and the mega knobs. And there you have it. This is my army list for 1990. Now, there are developments that need to take place. There's a lot of experimentation that needs to go around, but this is probably the core of what any strong Cult of Speed army is really going to look like. So I encourage you to play around with it. Make a few changes as you will. Like for example, I could probably drop the Dakajet and get one of those war bikers to a 6-man and maybe add in some Storm Boys. That's probably actually a better option. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm probably just going to do that. But hope you guys enjoyed. This is a deep dive into Kult of Speed. This is how we're going to use it. We went through a lot of stratagems. We went through a lot of tactics, strategies, and things that we can do to make this detachment work. Now, remember, this is probably by far the weakest of all the detachments in this codex, but it's still going to be fun, and I think it's still going to be very, very playable. You are not doomed to not have fun with this one. I think you could very reasonably still take this list to go 3-2 at a tournament. Yeah, I seriously doubt we'll see this winning any GTs, but that's okay. Not every list needs to be the strongest list in the game, and that's what Kult of Speed is for me right now. So this is a little bit longer video, and all these deep dives are going to be a little bit of a longer just because I have a lot of information to give you guys. If you like all of this, definitely drop a like and give me a subscription. Share this with all of your friends because these videos do take quite a bit of effort, but I love seeing all of you develop into much better players as we talk about the high-level tactics and strategies that we talk about on Happy Carpet Wargaming. If you want more information, hop in the Discord. You can join the members-only Discord. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really supports me bringing more content to you, and it makes you feel good doing something nice for someone else. Anyway, I love you guys all. Well, maybe not all of you. Some of you smell. Anyway, I'm going to take off for now. Crop on, everyone. Bye.